Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the H2O to go sling bag from Linds Handmade. Now there are lots of videos out there for this pattern, so the difference with mine is I will be showing you all the tips and tricks I use to sew this bag on a domestic machine, and also some of the ways that I sew this bag a little bit quicker for whenever I'm doing craft shows and I'm sewing them in a batch. So usually when I sew this pattern, I do 3 or 4 at a time, just so it's more like economical for me to make a bunch of these and I get a lot done all at once. So before we get started, let's just look a little bit about this bag. This pattern came out several years ago and just everybody fell in love with it because it's such a cool pattern. It makes sense, it's perfect, it's practical, it's just wonderful. In this main compartment here, this is where you would put your water bottle. You can see how big and roomy it is. There is plenty of space to put your phone, snacks, water bottles, whatever you need in here. You have this front pocket that zips all the way around. When I open it up, you can see there's a place for your credit cards. There's a slip pocket for your phone here, place for your driver's license, lip gloss, keys, whatever you want. That's the main features of this bag. Now in the Linds Handmade group, there is so many hacks for how to do different things with this pattern. I'm not doing many of those today. I'm going to show you a couple of things I do differently, but really I'm just going to stick with the basic pattern pieces is what I'll be doing. You can see that my bag's a little slouchier. That is one thing that I do change on this, the interfacing. You can follow Linds's video and the pattern exactly to do it exactly like she does. Your bag would have more structure. In this one, I used a cotton canvas and it's great. I didn't do really any interfacing at all and I love it like this. Yes, mine is smushy. I'm okay with that. I can throw it in the washing machine. I can throw it in my suitcase. I can do whatever I want. Whenever it's empty, it doesn't take up a lot of room, and I'm great with that. This is actually my own bag. I just made this one for me for a trip. The fabric on this one is from Retro Stitch. The fabric I'm using in today's video is also from Retro Stitch. In the description of this video, I had the link for where you can get the fabric and also for where you can get the pattern for this bag. Let's go ahead and talk about all the pieces we're going to need to sew up this pattern and some of the things I'm doing a little bit differently. The first thing I'm going to need is a number 5 zipper. You cut this specifically to the measurements she gives in the pattern. I went ahead and marked my centers. I haven't put my zipper pull on yet, but I'm going to do that first thing right away and get this prepped because this will be one of the first things we sew. The next thing we have is our zipper tabs. You will have 4 zipper tabs. For this bag, I'm using a cotton woven. I will not add any interfacing to the zipper tabs. They will be left uninterfaced. So that is 4 of those that I will attach to each end, 2 on each end of my zipper tape. I went ahead and made my D-ring connector. So I just took the measurements given the pattern and just folded the raw edges to the middle. That's all I did. With this one, I am unsure if I'm going to use my D-ring connectors. I am leaning strongly towards not and just having the strap be directly sewn in to the top of the bag here. I'm not for sure, but if you use a D-ring connector or a rectangular ring connector, here's where it goes, right here at the top. I have 2 credit card slot side panels. Whenever we make the credit card slots in this bag, we will use these side panels to attach it to kind of reduce some bulk so that everything's a little bit easier to sew together. This is my credit card slot back piece. We attach this after we make our credit card slots. I'm leaving this uninterfaced as well, same as with my credit card slot side pieces. What I do is after I construct this pocket, then I fill it to see if it needs 1 layer of an interfacing all over. I do not interface each individual piece of this pocket. I want to reduce as much bulk as I can. Since I'm using a domestic, I also want to save myself some time and energy and some money. So if I want to interface it after the end, I add it. If I feel like it doesn't need it, I just go forward. So I will let you know how it feels afterwards and then we'll decide on the interfacing. I have 2 base pieces. This is one for the exterior, one for the lining. When you look on the back of mine, you will see that I only have 1 layer of a medium weight interfacing, which is like your SF101. I use mine from Royal Pixie, but you can use whatever you have on hand. This is the first place that I really differ from the pattern. My interfacing on my other interior pieces is a little bit different, but this is where I do a big difference. I do not add any Decaville light to these pieces. Most of the people do, and that's just for structure so it sits better. You can see mine does sit up fine. I'm going to be sewing these. There'll be 2 layers to hold the water bottle in my bag. That is fine for me. Almost all of my bags I make can hold a water bottle with just 2 layers of this material. It's not going to be a problem. I've sold many of these, never had a problem with it not being stable enough. Definitely add the Decaville light if you want to. It does help create a sturdier base for the bag. But for me, I'm skipping that step. I always do. It makes it easier to sew. It's a little bit easier, less things to cut out and interface, and a little bit cheaper without that extra interfacing in it. For my credit card slots, I went ahead and folded these. I'm going to go through how we're doing this once we get through all the other pieces, but you will cut out this piece. It will be a long piece, and it will be given in the pattern measurements. There's not a pattern piece for the credit card slots. We will talk about this a little bit more. As of right now though, no interfacing at all on the back of mine. We will have 2 of these front pocket pieces. We have one right here, that's our exterior, and then we have one that's going to be attached to our slip pocket. So this will be my exterior piece. I did go ahead and add a layer of medium weight, like an SF101, interfacing to this. I added interfacing to the other piece for the interior as well. I went ahead and took my slip pocket piece and folded it in half and attached it together with that interior piece, just like it is here. I clipped that together because I already know that's the way I'm going to sew it. Just keeps things a little bit more easier in my head to understand. I did interface half of the slip pocket piece with interfacing. Only half. I didn't do the whole thing. So that's how I have that together. I'm going to show you and talk a little bit more about how I reduce the bulk in this to make it a little bit easier for my domestic, but we'll get to that in just a minute. The last 2 pieces that we're going to talk about will be the front main, which is this piece. You can see big hole cut out of that. That is going to be where this front pocket goes. This is cotton woven again. I did interface this with the medium weight interfacing, the SF101 or equivalent. And this is the lining. So this big piece here, interface that as well. If you wanted to make a very simple version of this or a really quick version, you could cut out 2 of these, sew them together. You wouldn't have this front pocket, and so you would have your water bottle holder, and it would be just a very simple, quick version. This would be great for kids that may not want to have this front pocket or have a need for this front pocket and just want a quick bag for carrying water bottles and things. So these are the pieces that we're going to have. I'm going to set these pieces aside, and we're going to go ahead and get started with constructing this bag. Anytime I sew a bag, I like to get everything prepped and then just kind of sit down and sew it all at once. It just kind of helps make it easier for me. So for the first thing I'm going to do is I went ahead and put a zipper pull on my zipper tape. I moved it halfway in the middle there. And then I'm going to take these zipper tabs. I'm going to place these zipper tabs. They're going to be, the exterior one's going to be right sides together with my zipper teeth. The lining one is going to be on the back side, so the right side of the zipper tab will be on the wrong side of the zipper tape. The 2 tabs will, in a sense, be right sides together, just with the zipper tape in between. Now I'm just going to put a quick clip here in place to hold this. I'm going to do the same thing on this end with the other 2 zipper tabs. I'm going to sew these using the seam allowance given the pattern right here across the short edge, and then I'll just pull them wrong sides together and then top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away. So that's the first thing I'll do. I'll prep these 2 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and take that exterior zipper pocket piece and make sure, pull that out, and make sure that I have the center marking on it. Center markings are extremely important in this pattern, so do not skip doing those. So I have that one there. This is the piece that I will attach the zipper to after I get it sewn together. I'll take that lining piece, and what I'm going to do is the slip pocket. The slip pocket piece is one long piece. All I did was fold it wrong sides together in half. You can top stitch like the pattern says. For me, this is one of the steps I save when I'm batch sewing these. I don't top stitch this at all. I just go ahead and attach it to this pocket piece. In the pattern, the original version, you just line up all the edges that you can, your two sides and your bottom. Since I'm sewing this on a domestic, this is a hack that Linds, the designer, did make to make it a little bit easier for those of us with a domestic, or if you just want to save some bulk in certain areas. I'm going to go ahead and give this one measurement because it is a hack. It is not in the pattern. What you do is you draw a line 5/8 of an inch up from the bottom piece. Then I take my slip pocket. This is the front of my slip pocket. I'm going to take it, I'm going to face it down and have the raw edge directly on that line that I just drew. You can put a clip or two there in place. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from that raw edge on your slip pocket to connect these two pieces. After you sew that, then you're going to fold it up, and then you'll sew about 1/4 of an inch. It's kind of like a French seam. And when you fold that up, that will encase, cover that raw edge there, so you won't see that whenever you are looking in your bag, but it'll look like this. Then you'll just do that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you can go ahead and baste your sides, and you'll have a little bit of, like, the seam allowance will not have this extra slip pocket bulk in there. That's the purpose of this step. If you're not worried about it, you could definitely sew it the way in the pattern. That is the way I'm going to sew this one. The other thing we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and work on this credit card slots. With this pattern, all your real work is that front pocket. Once you get it done, everything just comes together perfectly. If you're using a directional print, make sure you mark your top and your bottom. This is going to be my top. The first measurement given in this credit card slot piece is going to be to draw a line from the top a certain amount of inches down. I'm not going to give that measurement. And then you just fold that top piece back to the wrong side, so the wrong sides together. That's your first step. Then what I do is I have that fold right there. From that first fold, I start making my lines. The pattern tells you each measurement to make, but you measure from that folded edge or from that line you drew. I make all my marks on the back of my fabric. This is what I do. I always do it. It's just easier for me. You could do it on the front. If you do it on the front, you're just going to keep that line within your seam allowance. You wouldn't draw yours all the way across like I do. From that first measurement you make, you're going to make your second measurement. Then you'll make your third and your fourth all the way down to your fifth. Those lines you draw is what she calls your pinch lines. So what you do is, here's your first measurement, that second one. For me, I'm going to pinch it wrong sides together from this side. If that's a little tricky, you could put a piece of paper or something. I'll show you a little template. Lots of times I'll put a plastic template in there, and then I can fold them on top of each other. From the wrong side, if you do it like me, you'll pinch them this way. If you are doing this from the right side, you would pinch it this way. The only reason I do mine from the wrong side is so that I can have that full line across to make it a little bit easier for me to make sure I stay even. It's not a big deal whichever way you do it. It doesn't matter. The next thing she tells you is how far up you're going to pull that line to. For me, it's a little bit that you can choose it. I like to have a little bit more space in between mine, so I make mine a little bit bigger. But then for that line, you just pull it up to it like this. It's that accordion style fold. I'm going to show you that one more time just to make it a little bit easier for you to understand. So since I already have mine folded, it's pretty easy to see the way it goes. The first fold will be that top line all the way to the back. That's not a credit card slot. That's just the finished edge. The next line you make, you pinch it and you pull it up to the second measurement she gives you, which is what she calls the fold line. I just kind of eyeball mine and make sure mine are all even. I don't even draw that line on there. I just use my ruler and make sure I get mine even. That's how you do the credit card slots. If you have any trouble with this, I can do a separate video breaking it down a little bit better. But it's pretty simple, pretty basic. All credit card slots are made pretty much the same. At this point, you could top stitch everything. I am not going to, again, just to save time and effort whenever I'm making these in like 3 or 4 at a time, I just have that extra step taken off my plate with the top stitching. So I'm going to, since I'm avoiding that top stitching, I'm going on to my next step. I'm going to do the same thing I did with my slip pocket. I'm going to go up that 5/8 of an inch and I'm going to lay this directly on there, that bottom raw edge. Make sure it's your bottom, not your top. It shouldn't be the folded edge. And I will go ahead and do the 1/8 of an inch sew. Then I will pull that whole thing up. If you're worried about it shifting, you can baste your sides for sure. And then you'll come and do the 1/4 of an inch again here. That is how we're going to attach that, the same way that we're doing the slip pocket. So I'm going to get the credit card slot pieces attached to the back of the credit card slot. I'm going to get my slip pocket attached to this lining piece, and then I'm going to add my zipper tabs to the zipper tape. These are the steps I'm going to do to get everything kind of prepped and going together first. Now I've prepped 3 separate pieces. I have my zipper tape with the pull and the tabs on. I have my interior slip pocket made. I have my interior credit card slots started. Since I have this part ready, I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to pull out those 2 credit card slot pieces. Mine's directional, so I'm going to put it the right way on both sides. It doesn't matter which side these slots go on. They're both the same shape and everything, so if you have a preference, you can choose it. Just make sure if it's a directional print, it's going in the right direction. What you do then is you just flip it over, and you're going to sew against this side with the seam allowance given in the pattern. You'll do that with both of these pieces. Once you have it stitched on, then you'll pull it so that it opens up, and you're going to top stitch on your side piece. Your seam will be behind your side piece. We wouldn't want the seam to be on the credit card slots. That's extra bulk, and if we sewed on that top stitch, it would even reduce the size for the credit card slot. So definitely make sure that you do it that way. That's the next thing we'll do. Also, what we're going to do, since we have this zipper ready, we'll take out that front exterior pocket piece, and we will go ahead and start attaching this. I'm going to move my zipper pull a little bit out of the way so that it's not directly in the middle, because I want to be able to attach this perfectly here. My center marks on my zipper will line up exactly with the center mark on the top of that pocket. We just match those up. That's the first thing I do. I definitely use clips on this part quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a clip on either side just to help kind of secure it and hold it in place. Right there at the top. I'm not going to go down the curve any at all. Now what I'll do is, if you've got everything cut, measured properly, you're going to take your zipper tabs, and they should work out to where they fit exactly at the bottom. You'll have to do some pulling there to get it. You'll see that kind of bunching up. That's okay. Let's go ahead and start adding some clips right there. I'm going to do that same thing with this other side. Putting the raw edge of the zipper tabs with the raw edge of the bottom of this pocket. This is not a hard step to sew, but it is a slow step. If you want to use your stiletto to kind of help you, if you want to use double-sided tape or glue, you could. I feel like it's fine to just do it kind of like organically and just kind of go slow and move things around as you need to. And you want to try your best to get the seam allowance as close as you can. With this one, you could do just a basting stitch, which is probably what I'll do first, just to get everything attached, because we will be adding a lining, and when I add the lining, I can go ahead and get the full seam allowance then. I don't do any snips in my zipper tape. I never cut into my zipper tape because I just worry about it fraying. So if you do that as a practice, you could, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it completely straight like this. This is the way it looks from the back. This is the way it looks from the front. I'm going to sew it just like this, and like I said, I'm going to use that basting stitch first just to kind of keep everything connected. If you feel like you need to open your zipper, you can, if that helps you to get a better sew, but just go slow on it and don't rush. But what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and attach these side pieces and the zipper to this front pocket. When I'm coming up here, it's going to want to try to kind of smush out of the way. Don't let it. Keep pulling. Use the stiletto if you need to keep the raw edge of your zipper tape aligned with the raw edge of that pocket. Go one stitch at a time if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and get my pull out of the way. So these are the steps I completed. I have my credit card slots, the side panels on there. I'm comfortable with the way this feels, so I'm not adding any more interfacing to this. This is going to be done. What you do with this piece is you get out that pattern piece that says do not cut out yet, and that's the part you'll cut out. I use the center mark of this and the center mark of that pattern piece and line it up and just trim all around. I'm not going to put the pattern piece on camera, so I won't be showing that, but you will see me come back after I do that, and it'll be the right shape. I also went ahead and sewed on this front pocket. Now I'm going to just flip it out to make sure that everything looks good and I'm content with the way my curve looks. I feel really good with that. I like it. I'm good. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you the next steps. I went ahead and trimmed down my credit card slot piece to match the template given in the pattern. So I have that taken care of. I have this piece with the zipper attached. This is my exterior. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out that lining piece that has the slip pocket attached. I'm going to place it right sides together with that exterior piece having the zipper sandwiched in the middle. I'm going to match up those two center marks. And I'm just going to start clipping around just like I did the last time. Putting a few clips here at the top to secure it, and then going down at the bottom and adding clips with the zipper tabs matching the raw edges, and then just ease everything in all the way around. This time I'm going to make for sure I sew with that full seam allowance to get everything properly stitched together. So this is what we have. We have it all clipped together. The zipper's inside, the pieces are right sides together. I'm going to start sewing here at the bottom, go all the way around to this bottom. Back stitching on both of the bottom pieces. Definitely making sure I get that full seam allowance, going slowly, using my fingers to kind of feel to make sure the zipper is laying flat whenever I'm going over that, keeping the raw edges aligned, all those things. So take this part slow. It'll be fine. Use your stiletto if you need to, and just go one stitch at a time. Everything looks great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start top stitching here at the bottom. I want to make sure I'm pulling the fabrics apart from each other so I can get a really nice smooth top stitch, and I'm top stitching on this pocket piece, not on the zipper. So I will top stitch all the way around. I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch. Go all the way around, going slow, pulling, making sure that everything stays nice and tight when I'm going around those curves. And then I'm even going to baste across the bottom. So I'll go here and then baste across to close up that bottom pocket. So this pocket is done, and now it's ready to be attached to the exterior portion. I'm going to move this aside for just a minute. Get out the exterior part. That's the one with the hole in the middle there. And the way you do this is pretty cool. You just set it the way you want it to look at the end. This is the way you want it to look at the end. And then you're going to flip it up. And so that center mark of this free edge of your zipper tape is going to go right with the center mark on that exterior piece. So the exterior will be right sides together with the zipper tape. So that's where I put that first clip. I'm going to go ahead and put a second clip on each side of the center mark, just for security. And you can see it's already flipping up the way it needs to go. I'm going to go ahead and flip the rest of it up so that I can put these bottoms the same way I did with the other, right on the raw edge of the zipper tabs, and start having some clips along this straight edge here. We will not do the curve just yet, just getting some of the straight pieces together. The exterior is right sides together with the zipper tape. So I clipped all the way around. This is what it looks like from the lining side. You can see my slip pocket here and the wrong side of the fabric. From the exterior, it looks like this. The way I'm going to sew this is I'm going to take it over to my bed. The lining pocket will be right side up, the wrong side of the exterior. But the way I'll do this is I'll flip it around, and I'm going to push that portion under of the exterior so the interface side will be against the bed of my machine, and I'm going to take it right over here. I'm going to go ahead and sew this with the full seam allowance given in the pattern, and then we will come back and attach the credit card slot pocket to this whenever we get this attached. Go slow on this step, making sure that you keep this part out of the way. You should just be sewing through 2 layers on this, the zipper and the main exterior body piece. Okay, so here it is from the lining side. I see my slip pocket right there. I'm going to go ahead and take this credit card slot piece and I'm going to lay it right on top and matching up the raw edges of the credit card slot piece with that side of the zipper tape that we just sewed. Okay, so I have everything clipped. This time I'm going to flip it over and have everything right sides up, the exterior up. I will fold these in. I do not want to catch them at all in that seam allowance, and I'm just going to fold them back, slide it under my machine, and go ahead and stitch around the perimeter one more time of that zipper with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. The pattern does say that if you can just get, you don't want to like be on the other side of that stitch line, because if so, when you opened your bag you would see your previous stitches. I always just try to get just a hair over that previous stitch line, but even if you just get on top of it, it's fine. Okay, so we have that done. Our pocket is fully functional. Let's open it up and look. Everything looks great. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch around this, and then we're ready to start adding the base, getting it all put together. The front pocket is the slowest part of this, but it really doesn't even take that long in my opinion. I'm going to make sure my seam is to the exterior main portion of the bag, the main body piece. I don't want to be sewing on the zipper tape, in other words. Make sure you're keeping everything pulled nice and tight. And just top stitch all around. Okay, that is done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this piece. We only have a few pieces left. You should have your lining pieces and your base pieces. So for each of these pieces, I'm going to just fold them right sides together. And using the seam allowance given the pattern, I'm just going to sew along this side piece where we're clipping right now, kind of making a tube on both of these. Same thing with my exterior. After we do this, we will add the base and however you want to do your heart, whether you want to add D-rings or your strap. I'll need to decide that. And then we just put it all together. That quick. So now that I sewed down the side of both the lining and the exterior pieces, the next thing I do is mark the centers of both the lining and exterior and the base. The base has marks on the pattern piece, so you can use that or you can just fold it and quarter it, however you want to do it. But mark your centers and your quarter marks. For your lining and your exterior, your seam is 1 mark. Whenever you have it flat, this other side opposite of that is your other half mark. Then you take those 2 half marks, the seam and the one you just clipped, put them together, and then you can get your 2 quarter marks. You'll do this on the lining and the exterior. Then what you do is you take your base and you start matching it up. You want that oval, like you can see how it's an oval shape. The longer portion is going to be the one you can clip first on the front or the back seam. And then you'll do the other quarter markings. I'm going to go ahead and open up this seam right here. You don't have to. You can leave it shut and just push it to one side if you want. I'm going to put another clip right there. Same thing for the quarter marks. And you can see I'm pushing that base in to keep the edges, the raw edges lined up. Look right here, it's coming out. We're going to push it down in there, smush it in so that you can keep all the raw edges lined up evenly. It's not going to look perfect right now, that's okay. You're taking straight edges and making them curved edges. It's not going to look perfect while you're clipping, but when you look at it after you sew it, it's going to look just fine. When you're sewing this with a seam allowance given the pattern, you just have to go slow and make sure the raw edges are staying together. It's best to, if you are getting close to a pucker, to try to straighten it out. You don't want to sew over a bump if you can avoid it. You would see that if you did. The way I do it is whenever I'm at my machine, I always sew over a straight part. By that I mean if I'm in a curve, I straighten out the bag before I do it. Here's the exterior, here's the lining. I went ahead and did the exterior too. So let's talk about how we sew a curve. I'm going to go ahead and fit it under my machine on the straightest part. So that's probably your front or your back. I'm going to get it lined up to my seam allowance, and that's where I start. When I'm sewing this, you'll start with the straight part. It's going to be pretty simple. Start there. Back stitch, get going. So here I'm coming up to a curve. I'm not going to try to sew that as a curve. I'm going to take it and straighten it out so that my needle is going on a straight part. My material's straight right here. Do you see how I'm straightening it out? The edges are still lined. I'm still keeping my seam allowance. I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. I'm not going in a curve. I'm just straightening that part right when I get to it. Keep doing that all the way around, keeping it as straight as possible when your needle goes over it. Without having that Decaville light here, it goes so much easier, but even with the Decaville light, you could do it just fine, just as long as you're not trying to go, I don't try to go in a circle, I just keep everything straight. See how it's always a straight line on that seam allowance there. You can see that it's puckering and ruffling all around there, but look at how smooth that circle is. If I take this and go ahead and push it out, which I will trim that seam allowance down a little bit. You can see the bottom looks great. I haven't smoothed it out, but it's not, there's no problems, there's no puckers, there's no issues. It's not hard to sew on a curve if you just keep it straight when it's going under the needle. So there is that side. I'm going to go ahead and sew the exterior off camera because it's the same way, no difference there. I'm also going to trim up my seams, and I'm going to figure out my strap real quick and get it ready and situated for your strap. You can follow the measurements given the pattern. I usually have a specific mount that I always cut my strap to, so that's probably what I'll do. So at this point I have my lining piece sewn with the base attached, trimmed down, same for the exterior. I am going to go ahead and add rectangular rings. I went back and forth. I think this is just the way I'm going to do it. So I'm taking that, the connector, D-ring connector piece, and you can see it is cut to the measurements given the pattern, and I do not have an interface, and I just fold it, the raw edges, to the center. I don't fold it again. You could definitely interface this. You could use webbing for this, whatever you want to do. This is just the way I'm going to do it, but feel free to do it however you feel most comfortable doing it. I'm going to cut that in half and slide a rectangular ring onto it. Now I already know that I don't want this to like be very long off, so I'm going to sew it probably as close as I can to the exterior while still keeping my seam allowance. So I'm going to have an overhang to get it to where I'm just going to be able to catch the seam allowance without hitting that bar. That's my preference. I'm going to center it onto that exterior, like top corner piece. I forgot to leave the opening to turn the bag through the side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some stitches that lock in that opening there and seam rip a little hole, but make sure you do leave a little opening for us to turn through. I'm going to go ahead and turn my exterior right sides out. I'm going to put my exterior into my lining, and I want this front piece to be on the side opposite of the seam. So the two seams on my exterior and lining should match up. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to match up that seam first. Have them going in alternating directions. Then I'm going to go ahead and push that hardware down and match up these two side pieces, flipping them together. Matching up the two centers on the exterior lining and clipping the rest of the way around. It should fit really nice if you cut and did your seam allowances properly. Okay, now that I have this clipped all the way around, I'm just going to sew all the way around that clipped portion using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Then what I'll do is I will turn the bag through that opening that I created just now because I forgot to do it while I was sewing it in the lining. After I do that, I'm going to top stitch all around the opening here at the top and then close up the lining in the bag. Last thing I'll have to do is just to attach my webbing for the strap. It doesn't matter where you start sewing at. It's okay for whatever part you want to start. So I got the bag done. What I did was I sewed around the top, turned it through the birthing hole, top stitched around the top, and then closed up the birthing hole. Okay, the last thing I have to do is to add the strap. My bag is floppier than others you will see. When you're wearing it though, it's going to hold up beautifully. The bottle will be in there and it'll be looking like this, which is great. No problems at all with this. If you want to add more interfacing, feel free to add another layer of your SF101 or equivalent, Decaville Light, use waterproof canvas inside. These are all options and things you can do to make this bag fit your needs. But for me, since I'm sewing on a domestic machine, since I am sewing these in like batch style and making several to sell at shows, this is the way I do them. I understand that some people might not like the look as much as the others, so feel free to make this pattern fit for what you prefer. But I did want to show some options of how you can make it quicker, easier, and just a little bit cheaper. And so if you want to try this, go for it. Let me know if you have any suggestions or things you would like to change on it. As always, I'm going to link the pattern and where I got the fabric in my description. Trimming up these loose threads here, and then it's completely done. I will be taking all of my bags to Florida. We are hoping to leave tomorrow or the next day and be able to go to SME. So if you see me there, you will see me wearing, not this one will be for my son, but I'll be wearing the other one that I showed at the beginning of this video. And so if you see me wearing it, come and say hi. So here is the way my H2O to go sling bag from Linds Handmade looks. I'm using retro stitch fabric. Everything looks great. I love it when you wear it. It will be holding up, so you will not be slouching. There'll be a water bottle in there, be credit cards, phones, everything, and it will do great, serve its purpose. It will be washable. It is easy to sew this way. Quick, very quick sew, and it's great for batch sewing and sells wonderful at my shows. Definitely consider trying it this way, especially if you have a domestic machine or it's your first time sewing it. Let me know if you have any questions. I know I went through everything kind of quick. If you're confused on anything or need any extra help, let me know. I definitely will help. But thank you so much again for watching another tutorial on mine. Let me know if you have any bags, patterns, anything you want me to sew up next. And I hope you have a great day sewing, and I hope you sew something amazing today.